In this video, we'll go over the selection sort algorithm, and we'll look at the animation of this algorithm. Also, we'll look at a function template implementation of this algorithm. Let's start with the animation of the algorithm. I'm going to press on the step here. The algorithm starts by inspecting the array from index 0 all the way to the end and finding the smallest element in the array. Once again, smallest element from the starting index to the end. In this case, it is 2. The algorithm will swap the minimum element, in this case 2, with the element at index 0. So 2 is in its correct position at index 0. Then index I is moved to element 1. The algorithm inspects all the elements in the array from index 1 all the way to the end of the array and finds the smallest element, in this case 5. Then 5 is swapped with the element at index 1. Next, I is incremented to 2. The algorithm inspects all the elements from index 2 all the way to the end of the array and finds the smallest element, in this case 13. 13 is swapped with the element at index 2. So if you look at it, the elements 2, 5, 13 are in their correct position. Another step through the algorithm, I is at index 3. The smallest element in the remaining array is 21, and those two elements are basically swapped. Step again. Now let's move to the code. The outer loop that you see here basically is in charge of moving the index I forward. So that index I right now is 4. And then inside this for loop, there is another for loop. That inner for loop is in charge of finding the smallest element in the remaining sublist, basically. It finds the smallest element from index 4 to the end of the array. If you look at this inner for loop, it has loop variable j, which starts at I plus 1. So j starts from 50. 50 is compared with 97, which currently is the smallest element. 50 is compared with 97, so 50 is basically selected or upgraded as the smallest element so far. Then the inner loop will move to 54. 54 compared to 50. 50 is still the smallest. 45 and 50 are compared. 45 is smaller than 50, so 45 is now the smallest element seen so far. So as the inner loop goes through the remaining indices, it identifies 24 as the smallest element. And once this is basically done, this smallest element is found, the conditional statement at the end takes care of swapping the elements. So this swapping that takes place is done by the conditional statement at the end. So stepping through, I becomes now 5. I is 5. Minimum element is 50. You go through this loop, continue searching for the smallest element in this subarray, which ends up being 43, and then the swap. So this process basically continues, and eventually the array will be sorted. This is the selection sort algorithm. Now also, I should mention the function template here. Notice the array receives an array of type T. This is a template function. But one thing that you need to pay attention to is that the size of the array is still an integer, right? The size of the array indicates how many elements are in the array, and that should remain as an integer. So in this case, the list is of the type T, template type, but the size remains as an integer. And also in the code, as you look at these different variables declared, for example, current minimum, which holds the current minimum in the array, has to be of the type T. because the elements of the array are of the type T, the template type. So you got to be mindful of that as well.